Hello, it's so good to be with you all today. My name is Malia, and I help PEP some with communications things and helping to get the word out about what the Lord is doing through PEP and families' lives. And I'm here today with Nina Roesner, and we have literally just met. So these questions you hear me asking her are literally honest to goodness questions. This is not rehearsed. But I'm so glad that she's agreed to share her family's kind of educational journey and experience and the role that PEP has played. But Nina, I guess right off the bat, share a little bit about kind of your family makeup and context when it comes to education, but also, how many children do you have? Do you have one? Do you have 12? Just share your context.
I have friends that have many children. I have three, and they're all actually adults. We are empty nesters now. My daughter is in her first year at Wheaton in Chicago. It's a wonderful little Christian college.
Oh, good.
Our oldest son, he's 25 right now, and he is a worship pastor at a church here in Cincinnati and has a music production company. And then our other son is that you see in the biology, medical sciences, something
smart.
Yeah, that could be a doctor thing at the end of it at some point. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the variety, obviously, of their makeup and gifts. So how did you help cultivate that and prepare them and give them an education that would prepare them for life, to be good thinkers, to be culture shapers, and to go out into the world? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I feel like my husband and I did what God wanted us to do. We sent our oldest to kindergarten, sweet little Christian school, and it drove us nuts. It was a wonderful little experience, but it was also not educationally what he wanted.
Yeah.
He wanted more. Yeah. So, and then we wanted to try homeschooling. I'm from Montana originally, and so the people in Montana that homeschooled are the ones that live so far out in the country they couldn't get bus service, right? So it was this weird thing when we moved to Cincinnati. There's all these people doing this homeschool thing, and I'm thinking, y'all,
it's normal.
I know, right? But a lot of people in our church were doing it, and I'm like, all right, I'll try this. And I had fun. We picked out all the curriculum, did the thing, and then so we did K through 6. And we actually did do a year with our middle son. He went to a private Christian school here in Cincinnati for a year. We just did what our kids were supposed to be doing as we felt led by the Lord that year.
I love that.
Yeah, and so God was really in charge of their education. We were passionate about having a classical education, one where they were taught to think on their own. And I'm so thankful for that. One of the things that I do in ministry, I lead a small international ministry, and we see the impact that social media has on relationships and the esteem of an individual. And so my kids are differently equipped to handle that as a result of the processes they were taught in PEP in terms of how to think. So they view what comes at them through the world through a filter of biblical education, and not just biblical education, but discipleship through the relationships with the tutors. We had a lot of pressure with all three of our kids. They wanted to consider doing CCP. Some of their friends were doing it. It's like, oh, what do we do? We prayed about it. With our first, we said no. That was just kind of controlling. And then with the other two, we actually considered it and gave them choice in the matter. And all of them decided to stay. And I'm so glad that they did. And here's why. When we talk to people that were doing post-secondary college, whatever that's called now, but the college stuff and getting credit, yeah, it's free, right? But they lost touch with their friend groups. And this whole thing, until these kids are about 20, 21, their friend groups have as much impact in their emotional, relational, spiritual development as anything. And so I've got kids that my son, all of his friends went to his, I mean, there was tons of men at this wedding, and they're this pack of people, right? And they're still connected like that. And my other son, same thing. I mean, these guys are like brothers with each other. And my daughter's a freshman in college, so I'm like, I don't know how that's going to shake out, with her, but because they're older than she is. But it's been interesting to me to see what an impact those relationships have had as they've gone into adulthood. So I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, and I know it's very expensive to not go do the free college thing. But what's interesting is I teach public speaking. I get a wild hair to go do that once in a while at Cincinnati State. And the interesting thing is that the credits don't count the way that people were led to believe they were going to count.
Oh.
They separate off, and this is wise. And sometimes they don't, but in some cases it's like high school. And then when they move into college, there's stuff on the forms now are these CCP credits.
Wow. So they
Yeah.
still have to take those classes.
A lot of them do, yeah. And so we were kind of whoosh, because I heard from people I was talking to that, oh my gosh, we did this and it was a waste of time.
Wow.
So, yeah, so there's
That's
that
heavy.
piece. It is, especially, I think it's very misleading. I would encourage parents to, I'm not trying to push anything. This is what we did for our family. I think there's a bazillion ways to school a kid, right? And we didn't
make an informed choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for us, PEP was most of it. I like to say we tried homeschooling for 12 years.
You kept trying.
Yeah. Well, and it was very, like my daughter's senior year, she was nannying, and she actually wanted to look at doing something with her friends. And, a lot of them were in theater, a lot of them were at this school here in Cincinnati. And so we said, yeah, give it a go, take a look at it. So she went and she looked, and then she made this incredible decision. She decided she was going to stay at PEP so that she could stay nannying, and that she could be with her friend group and finish and do the capstone, because that's a huge thing for these kids. It's like their senior year, they pull everything that they need to know from a theological basis into this project. It is amazing. And the thing about it was this little girl's mom had died. And so Lizzie was a constant figure in her life. And so, yeah, and I think PEP had something to do with that. I mean, I'd love to take credit for my daughter's character, but honestly, I don't want to take credit for any mistakes she makes either. So I just have to say, this is all Jesus.
Yes, it's all grace.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is that you hear people talk about how the curriculum's challenging and it's a lot of work and all of that. You have to make some hard choices about what do you want for your children. If you want a kid that gets the easy way out and does something simple and doesn't get the stress and the pressure of having a 5-page paper due on Friday, and I have a foster son that in the Cincinnati public school, their project that took 6 months was a 3-page paper. They needed 2 courses for it.
Wow.
Yeah, and you see the difference in these kids when they show up in college.
Yeah, for sure.
People that were homeschooled and that in my classes, and they were night and day different compared to the students that were out of public school. And not that public school is a terrible choice. There are great public schools in Cincinnati. I'm referring to a very specific one at the moment, but you just have to be really involved in your child's education. And you have to make the right choice. Like for our foster son, that was the right choice for him to be there. So I don't want to negate, what's the right choice for your kid. But I see we do a lot of work with parents and families in our ministry, and we see people that just struggle. They want everything to go well and be easy. And it's like, no, set them up to do something hard. So they learn how to do hard things now. So that when they're out, they'll know how to handle that, and they won't be living in your basement when they're 25.
Right.
And I like my kids. I would actually love to live with my children. They're wonderful people. But they're they're resilient, they're
Yeah.
responsible and independent. And
Yeah.
I see them as being able to make contribution to culture and society in a way that could impact the world for Christ. And I have nothing
Mhm.
to do with that, just him, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, you got me excited, so I've talked way too much.
No, not at all. This is so, so great. So, and I mean, practically speaking, you mentioned the capstone project. You mentioned the workload, how it's good to do hard things, but like, I mean, how hard was it? How much time did it take them? I mean, because it sounds like they had other things, like your daughter nannied, your one son is a musician, so
Mhm.
it's not like all they did was schoolwork. It
Right.
sounds like they're well-rounded people. They
Mhm.
had a life.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
practically, how did that break down, and how did you navigate that? I
yeah.
mean, I'm sure there were rough spots, but
Not well. So here's the thing. Um, I went to school. I graduated from junior high and high school. So I look at school as this is their job.
yeah.
And knowing my children, I know what they're capable of. You
Mhm.
know, they have study habits. We've really helped them learn the skills they need to do well, but
Yes,
they're responsible for their grades.
so good.
And they understand how the grades they get are going to impact what happens to them later. And so in
Mhm.
an average week, we're doing life at home and they're doing their schoolwork. And you know, when they were in 7th and 8th grade, and I will say this was easier when I didn't have a high schooler and a junior higher in the house at the same time. It got a little bit more challenging. But with the oldest one, we shut the internet off when we went to bed at 10.
Yeah,
So, oh yeah, we're that guy, you know.
I love it.
It's like, no, here's when you have access to your
Yeah,
stuff. And by the way, we'd rather you use paper because you're going to remember 20,
yeah,
I think you lose like 25% of what you read digitally. So we, yeah. So we encourage them to manage their time well, and we let
good.
them fail, you know.
Yeah, that's so important.
Because I don't want to be doing that stuff for them. And I didn't want a controlling relationship with them
Yeah,
because that's what causes rebellion.
yes,
So we were able to avoid that by not
good,
being controlling. And I was very
good.
open with them. You know, you need to manage this. So an average week would look like they'd go to school, tutoring 2 days a week, right? And we did core, we did all core, and then we did 1 or 2 or 3 of the other stuff, you know, the science and the math and then
Yeah,
foreign language, whatever. And then they did, both of my boys Eagle Scouted. So they did Boy Scouts during the
great.
week. They had, and that was hard because we did
Yeah.
Tuesday, Thursday PEP, and Boy Scouts was on Wednesday night.
Ooh,
So yeah, they had, and then my oldest son was in a band, and so you know he had band rehearsal, and then he had worship practice on top of that.
yeah,
And so everybody had to learn to manage their time.
yeah.
So because the friend group and the stuff that everybody was involved in, a lot of them were involved in it together. So they
That
were
helps.
all, the peer pressure of managing your time was also really, really good. Yeah.
Mhm.
So and the other two did, one of them did robotics, and Lizzie was like big into theater and musical stuff, and she worked. So I just want to say it's possible.
Yeah.
What I see that makes it difficult, and matter of fact, I was just coaching a parent last week about how she needs to get her fingers out of her son's homework. And
Yes.
the 10th grader, let him figure this out. And she's like, but he's not going to do well. I'm like, well, what's going to happen to him when he goes to college? Are you going to do his homework for him then too? You know, you got to stop doing this.
I've
And
literally heard moms say, and we're applying for college and we're doing, and I'm like, we?
no,
No, there's no we.
yeah. Well, and what's interesting is my daughter applied for Wheaton
Yeah,
all on her own.
I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she filled out all the paperwork, got accepted,
good.
did all the entrance, everything. And by the way, all 3 of my kids did well on the ACT. I know some
Oh,
people
that's
are
great.
worried about, you know, are they going to get in? Yeah, they'll get in.
Yeah,
It's rigorous. And you know what? With some of the classes, what they get in college is less than what they're
yeah,
going to get at PEP. Because
yeah.
what I mean, the education's solid, and it kind of
Mhm.
depends on major and stuff.
Sure.
But for us, the worldview element was the most important thing, and there's so much brain
Mhm.
development in those last years. It's just
Yeah,
we wouldn't have missed it.
I love
Yeah.
that. Well, and you mentioned it, it sounds nice to do the cheap option, and it feels expensive to stay at PEP. But then you mentioned like your kids, kind of being successful in
Mhm.
their after.
Yeah,
So I almost wondered, you as a parent, you encourage people, you have to weigh out what do you want your kids to
right.
have.
Yeah,
But it sounds like the payout has been pretty good as they've moved on.
yeah, and financially too.
That's what I was kind of getting at. It seems
Yeah,
like,
I mean, all of them got gobs of scholarship dollars.
oh, that's
And so
awesome.
we have like this much that you can go to school on,
Yeah,
wherever you go. And they were able to meet that with the scholarship stuff.
yeah, that's
So
great. So it paid for itself.
I think that's an understatement.
More than paid for itself, you'd
And,
say.
again, it depends on the kid and if
Yeah,
they're going to work,
yeah,
and if they're going to prepare for the ACT, which we did.
yeah.
So
That's great. I love that. I love that. Well, do you have any final encouragement for parents just as they pray and plan for next year?
yes, yes, be totally okay with your kids having emotional meltdowns over all sorts of things, and that's not your problem.
Yeah.
You need to learn how to navigate life. And so, as they are hormonal hot messes, right?
What?
Yeah, what? As so that's going to be normal anyway. But we did have a few nights where there was, I don't know how I'm going to get this done, and I'm like, yeah, I don't either. Good luck. And I'll here's some tea. Have good.
Yeah.
And then I went to bed. And they figure it out because they have to. Don't
Mhm.
rescue them and expect the gnashing of teeth that comes regardless of what school choice you make, by the way.
It's
Um,
true.
yeah, don't own it. It's not yours to own, and let them figure themselves out. Walk with them, don't control. That's
Mhm.
nice.
I love it. That's awesome. So good. Well, thank you so much, Nina. I love just the good report and just hearing the testimony of what the Lord has done in your family and just your wise exhortation and encouragement for other parents. I just appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I
Yeah,
love to talk about PEP.
that's great. Well, maybe we'll have to do it again. I love it.
I'd be happy to. Thanks.
Everyone have a good day.